Okay. So what will happen in industry is you will be accessing your Oracle database through Putty. Okay. So what exactly is Putty? Putty is a command line tool. Okay. It's not a graphical tool. I'll show you how it looks and how do we use that to connect to the database. Okay. So here we will specify the host name or IP address of the system here, or IP address of the server where your database is running. Okay. So in this case, my database is running on this IP. Okay. Don't change this port. It will remain 22 only unless and until your server has a different port. Okay. By default, it will remain 22 only. Okay. And we are going to connect through SSH. So just click on open. It will prompt you to enter the user ID and password. So I'll connect as Oracle user. Okay. I have entered the credentials. So the user ID and password has to have with you. Now, this Oracle user credentials, you as a DBA, you might have it with you, or only some of the DBAs or senior DBAs in the team will have access straight away to the Oracle user. What they will do is, the other option would be that if it is a big team of DBAs, say 10 or 12 DBAs, then ideally they should be having their own IDs. Okay. And using those IDs, first you connect to the server and then you switch yourself to the Oracle user. In case of Linux, we do something called as a sudo. Okay. So then you sudo to Oracle user. Okay. Now in our example, we are straight away connecting as Oracle, or else let me try to show you the sudo way as well. Okay. Let's say you are connecting as root user. Okay, here instead of root, it could have been anything. It could have been Mahesh, it could have been Azaz, anything like that. Okay, and once you have logged in through your user credential, then you do something like this: sudo su space hyphen Oracle. Okay, so here if you see on your prompt previously, it was showing root over here. That was the user through which you connected. Now, when you did a sudo to Oracle, it is showing Oracle over here. Okay. And if you fire the ID command, it shows the username as well. Okay. You understand that? Mahesh, Azaz.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So if you are having the Oracle credentials, you can now log in through Oracle itself, no problem. If you don't have the Oracle credentials in industry, ideally you will be having your own dedicated user ID. Once you have logged in through that credential, then you do a sudo like I have shown over here, sudo su space hyphen Oracle. Okay. Now, if you are connecting, if you are logged in on the server, first, how do you check if any database is running on the server or not? Okay. So when you fire this command, this is the default output that you get. Okay. So if you get an output something like this, it means there are no databases running on the server right now. Okay. Next thing that you want to identify is which are the databases that are configured. Okay, I'm not saying that which are the databases which are currently up. Okay, which are the databases which have been created or configured on this node. How do you check that? One way is to check this file. Okay, there is this file etc aura tab. Okay, now the cat command in Linux is used to read any file. Okay, like we open any file, notepad file in Windows, you double click on that, right? If you're running in a graphical mode, you will do a double click, correct? Similarly, in case of Linux, if you are on command line, and through command line, if you want to read the contents of any file, you do a cat command. Okay, so I'm trying to read this file /etc/aura tab. This is the file name is aura tab, and it is present inside the /etc directory. Okay, so here you see two names, okay, or two entries. All these lines that you will see which are having hash at the beginning, that means they are commented. Okay, hash at the beginning means commented. So in the /etc aura tab, here you see two entries, DB1 and DB5, which means that on this server or on this system, there are two databases that have been configured. Okay, but none of them are currently running. Do you see any name by the anything like DB1 or DB5 in this output? No, you don't see anything like that. Okay. Now let's try to start one of these databases. We will discuss what is all this entry as well. Okay. The first thing that you see over here, it is the name of the database. So we will try to start this database by the name DB5. I tried to start this DB5 database, but there is some issue with that DB5 database. Okay, let's not get into that thing right now. Okay, so I tried to start the DB1 database. Okay, and this is how we start a database. We will see what all stages your database instance goes through when you fire this command. So coming back to this command which we used previously to identify how many databases or which are the databases that are currently up, okay, on this system. You see, you compare these two outputs. Previously, it was showing something like this. Okay, when you fired this command, okay, later on, the same command is showing something like this. Okay, so see the difference. Now here it is showing aura underscore pmon underscore db1. Okay, so when you fired the command ps-ef grep pmon, basically you want to see which are the pmon processes running on this server. So for every database instance which is currently up and running on that server, it will have one pmon process in it, right? We discussed about the pmon background process yesterday, that it is one of the mandatory background processes for the database instance, correct? So
Yes.
just now when we started this db1 database instance, okay, now this pmon process is running on the server, and that's why in the command output we can see this aura underscore pmon underscore db1, which was previously not visible because the database instance was not running. So this is how you check whether any specific database instance on the server is up or not, or at any given point in time, how many database instances are currently up. Now, if there was another database by the name DB2, which was up and running on the server, then there would be another entry like aura underscore pmon underscore DB2. Okay, getting it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So this DB1 that you see after pmon, it is the name of the instance. Okay, this DB1, whatever you see over here, it is the name of the instance. Now, how do you connect to the database? So as a DBA, you will be connecting to the database like this, SQL plus slash as sysdba. It is one of the ways to connect to the database as sysdba. So sysdba is the highest level of privileges that a user can have in database. Okay, so you as a DBA, you will be having this privilege called as sysdba. So you connect to the database as sysdb. Okay, now let's say if you want to check the name of the database, then you fire this command, select name from v dollar database. Okay, so this command has given you an output. Okay, so here we see that the name of the database is db1. Okay, and we have used this query select name from. So this part should be clear, like it is pretty you must be seeing this in SQL server as well, normal select command. Okay,
Yes, yes.
then you see something called as v dollar database over here. So what is this v dollar database? Now, if you remember, in case of architecture, during architecture, we talked about something called as data dictionary, or we called it as the metadata of the database. Sorry. You remember we
Yeah.
talked about the data dictionary. We said that it stores all the information or the metadata of the database. So here we are trying to find what is the name of the database. So that is actually a metadata about the database, right? That what is the name of the database? Let's say if you want to find out when exactly the database was created, on which date this database was created. Okay. Okay. So this was created on 10th April 23. Okay. So again, I fetched this data from v dollar database. Okay. So in case of Oracle, your data dictionary, which is having or which is storing all the metadata of your database, those data dictionary tables, their names are starting with v dollar. Okay, so if you see any table for which the name starts from v dollar, that means it is a data dictionary table. The regular tables that the users will be creating, their names will not be starting from v dollar. Clear with that? V dollar means
Okay.
it is a data dictionary. It is storing or it is having some or the other metadata about the database. So similar to this name and created, there will be multiple other columns as well present inside this V dollar database. So if I want to see how many rows or how many columns are present inside this data dictionary table, I'll do a description. The short form for that is DESC V dollar database. Okay. So this data dictionary table, that is V dollar database, it has these many columns present in it. Okay. like DB ID, DB name, on which date it was created, so on and so forth. We will have so much information. So similar to this $V database, there will be thousands of other internal tables that you will be seeing in case of Oracle. Okay. And from time to time, we will be using those different kind of data dictionary view. Okay. So, yeah. So this is how you connect to the database. Like you first start PuTTY, and then once you have logged in through your credentials, first you find out whether the database to which you want to connect to on that server, whether it is up and running or not. How do you check that? By checking the pmon. Okay, you do a ps-ef grep pmon, and then it shows you that, okay, these are the databases that are currently running, or which are the databases that are current database instances that are currently running on that server. Okay, now let's say that if you as a DBA, you want to shut down that database. Okay, if you want to shut down any database in case of Oracle, how do you do that? So you can fire a simple shutdown command. Okay. Okay. So if you see here now, if you run the same pmon command, again, you don't see that pmon process for the DB1 process database instance, correct? This is gone now because the database instance has been stopped. Clear with this?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
When we install this Oracle server, this will be pop up like this Oracle underscore local host for us also.
Yeah, it will. So this is basically this Oracle. It is showing you the ID through which you are connected to the server at that moment. Okay. See, if I connect to the same server, duplicate session I did. If I connect through as root user, okay, now it is showing as root at the rate localhost. Okay, so this part is your ID through which you logged into the server, and this localhost, it is showing that you are connected to this system. That's all. Localhost is your local system.
Okay.
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 Yeah.
Seems to be
So
Oracle database also base of the base is the SQL only. It seems to be
no.
on
So
SQL platform only. Oracle database has been created. Almost all the commands seems to be SQL commands. Like
no. So all these databases, the SQL is only SQL I'm talking about, okay? The select statement, insert, update, delete statements, okay? SQL is basically a language that we use to communicate with the database, okay? So that SQL language is pretty much same, be it your SQL server or Oracle, okay? Or for that matter, any other RDBMS as well, okay? So all these RDBMS, which we talk about like Postgres or any other environment, Sybase, whatever it is. So all of them, they will be having their own little bit varieties added to the SQL language. But more or less, they will look like the same. Okay, it's like using the for loop in C++ and using the same for loop in
Okay.
Java and then again in Python. So there might be little difference here and there because of the platform. Okay. But
Okay.
eventually the logics will look like the same, right? So that is what is the case with I mean what you are saying about SQL. Okay. Okay, fine. So when you fired this shutdown command, basically what happened was your DB1 instance, which was running on this server, it has been brought down. Okay. But when this shutdown command, once you fire that, it shows you a few messages: database closed, database dismounted, Oracle instance shutdown. Okay. So internally, this shutdown command has gone through these three phases. Okay. I'll just copy it on a notepad.
In
Okay.
real time, we run this command, no, no.
No, we're very in production environments, you will not be firing the shutdown commands generally. Okay. You will fire a shutdown command only for some or the other maintenance activities. Okay. Non-prod environments, we keep on doing the changes on the system. Okay. But production environments, you will not be firing these shutdown commands every now and then. Okay. It will be maybe quarterly for applying some patches on the system. Okay. Or for some critical activities that needs to be done on the production environment. That time there may be a requirement to shut down the database. So you will fire the shutdown command. Otherwise, production, very rarely you will do that. Okay. So be very careful when you are going to fire the shutdown command. You have to ensure that you are shutting down the correct database. So every DBA must have made this kind of a difference during their initial days, that instead of shutting down the non-prod or the development environment, the DBA has shut down the production environment. Okay. Many a DBAs will make that mistake. And most of these things happen when you are in night shift. Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah. So these are the phases that you see that the instance has gone through when you fire the shutdown command. Okay. Now, let's say that we will discuss all these phases as well again. Okay. Similar to the shutdown phase, the database instance goes through various phases when you try to start it up. Okay. Just observe it here. So if I want to start up any database instance, I will fire the startup command. So see some of these messages you will understand. You see this database buffers. We talked about the database buffer cache. Remember?
Yes.
We talked about we talked about the redo log buffers, correct? We talked
Yes.
about the SGA, shared global area, right? So
Yes.
those are the memory components that are getting allocated when you are starting up the Oracle instance. Okay. So when you fire this startup command, you are actually telling Oracle to start up this Oracle instance. Okay. And internally it goes through all these phases. Okay. Oh, okay. So let's go through the database startup phases first. Okay. So when you are going to start up the database, the first and foremost file that you need is something called as a parameter file. Okay. So we need a parameter file to start the instance. What exactly is a parameter file? Okay. So a parameter file is basically a normal text file wherein you will have all the Oracle database parameters. Well, not the Oracle database parameters, we should say the instance parameters. Okay. It will be a normal text file and you will see that it has a list of parameters listed in it. Okay. Which is required for your instance to start up. Okay. So where is it present? Okay. So your parameter file of the database instance, okay, it is present inside this location. Okay. So this is the location of your parameter file. Oracle home slash DBS. What is this Oracle home? You will see when you install the Oracle binaries, Oracle software, that time you will understand what is Oracle home. But for now, understand that your parameter file, which lists all the instance parameters, it is present inside this location, Oracle home slash DBS. So here you will find a file by the name init db1.ora. Okay, here db1 is representing the instance name. Okay, now if there was some other Oracle database or another Oracle instance running from the same or which was using the same Oracle software location, then you would see something called as something like the name init db2.ora, init db3.ora, or whatever it is. Okay. So whatever you see after the init keyword, okay, whatever name that you see after the init keyword, this is the name of your instance. Okay. This is the name of, if here instead of db1, let's say db3 was present, that means the name of the instance was db3. Okay. So in case of Oracle, whenever we are referring to instance name or whenever anyone says the SID, okay, it means one and the same thing. The SID or the instance name are the same thing. Okay. So let me connect to the database once again and show something to you. Show parameter instance underscore name. Okay. So here we have got a parameter instance underscore name, which defines the name of the instance. Clear? Then there is another parameter by the name db underscore name. Now in this case, the db name and instance name parameter are having same values, but there is every chance that these two values will be different. It might happen that the name of the instance is db1, but the name of the database, okay, it is Mahesh, or it can be Azaz as well. It can be anything. There is no mandate or there is no mandatory requirement that your instance name and database name should be same. They can be different.
Yes.
Okay. And whatever you see as part of the Pmon output, okay, this is your instance name or the SID. This is not your DB name. Be very clear about it. Okay. whatever name that you see besides Pmon, it is the name of the instance or the SID. It is not the name of your database. Clear about that, Azaz?
Yes,
Azaz, you
Dhruv.
there?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So we were checking the parameter file location. Okay. So ls-lrt is the command that we make use of in case of Linux to list down all the files that are present inside the current directory. You must be using the ls command in Windows as well, right? So similar to that, we have something called as an ls-lrt for Linux. Okay, so here you see this file init db1.ora. Again, here the db1 name or db1 keyword that you see, not the keyword, but a name that you see over here, it is the name of the instance. Okay, now if I want to see the contents of this file, I'll say cat init db1.ora. Okay, so now this lists all the parameters of the database instance. Okay, this parameter file is now listing all the parameters which applies to this DB instance by the name db1. Okay, so just try to understand some of these parameters right now. This is the parameter db underscore name, which is used for naming your database. Okay, then over here, although you don't see the instance underscore name parameter, okay, do we see instance underscore name parameter over here? No, it is not there. Okay, yeah, fine, it is. So what happens in case of Oracle is there are something called as implicit parameters and explicit parameters. I'll make a note over here. Okay. Implicit parameters and explicit parameters. So what are the implicit parameters and what are the explicit parameters and what's the difference? See, for an Oracle database, internally, there are hundreds of parameters that come into picture. Okay. But many of them or most of them will have a default values. Okay, you don't need to, unless and until you go and explicitly define a value for those parameters, okay, they will take the default value. Okay, if you want to explicitly set a parameter to a specific value, like in this case, while creating the database, I specifically wanted the database name to be set as db1. Okay, when I explicitly wanted the database name to be set as db1, I made use of this parameter db underscore name and I explicitly set it to db1. So the parameters which you are explicitly setting in the data, the parameters which you are explicitly specifying a value, okay, they are called as explicit parameters. There will be many or hundreds of parameters which Oracle has to use, okay, but you as a DBA, you don't have to mandatorily specify a value to it. Those parameters are called as implicit parameters. You clear with that, Azaz and Mahesh?
Yes.
Okay. So it is implicit parameter.
Yeah, so implicit parameters are, they are going to take the default values. Okay, they will have their own default. Oracle will have a default value for those parameters. Now, unless and until you go and change it, it's okay. As soon as you have specified your own required value to a parameter, it becomes explicit. Okay. So that's the difference. Yeah. So in your parameter file, you are not going to see all those hundreds of parameters. You will see most of the explicit parameters and a few of the implicit ones as well. Okay. So if you see here, open underscore cursors equals to 300, processes equal to 500. While creating the database, I did not specify them. Okay. I did not specify this parameter. I did not specify this parameter, but still it has taken a value of its own. So that means this 300 is this parameter open underscore cursors is an implicit parameter, and whatever value it is taking over here, it is the default value for that parameter. Okay. I did not set this processes parameter explicitly to 500. Okay. So that means this is an implicit parameter and it has by default taken a value of 500. So every parameter, it will have a default value as well along with it. Okay. So that is about implicit parameters and explicit parameters. So all these parameters for the database instance are listed inside the parameter file. Okay. Now this parameter file, you understand now the naming convention. Okay. So similar to this parameter file, there is also something called as a server parameter file. Okay. So the parameter files are also of two types. Parameter files are also of two types. Static parameter file and dynamic. Okay. So what is the difference between static parameter file and dynamic parameter file? See,
Static
this,
means constant one, and dynamic means rotated. Keep on
yeah,
changing.
yeah. So what happens is, if your database instance was started using a static parameter file, okay, so the parameter files whose name is going to start with init. Okay, the parameter files, understand this and remember this, the parameter files whose name is going to start with the keyword init, they are static parameter files. Okay, the parameter files whose name start with sp file. Okay, the parameter files whose name will be starting with the keyword sp file, they are dynamic parameter files. Okay, what is the difference between the static parameter file and the dynamic parameter file? The difference is, let's say that your database instance was started using a static parameter file. In this case, say init db1. In that case, if the database instance is up and running, okay, and you want to modify one of the parameters, let's say I want to modify this parameter open underscore cursors. I want to change the value from 300 to 600. I will not be able to do that because the database instance was started using a static parameter file, which means that on the fly, when the database instance is up and running, you cannot make a modification to the parameters. Whereas if the database instance was started using the dynamic parameter file, okay, like this one, in that case, on the fly, if you want to change a parameter value, you will be able to change it. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. Okay, so in this case, I fired this command show parameter sp file. Okay, now this is giving me a value like this path so and so, and it is giving me the name of the file as well. Okay, so inside dbs, this sp file db1.ora, this was the name of the file that we referred just now, correct? That this is a dynamic parameter file, correct? So now you have two ways to check a parameter value. One of them is you may, if you are already connected to the database, you fire this command, show parameter, let's say open underscore cursors. If I want to see the value of this parameter, so I fired this command, show parameter, open underscore cursors. The other way would have been to go and check the parameter value in the parameter file itself. Okay. Now we said that if the database instance was started using the dynamic parameter file, as we can see in this case. Okay. So if you want to identify whether the database instance is started using parameter file, using the dynamic parameter file or static parameter file, you fire this command, show parameter sp file. This will show you which specific file was used. Now here it is showing me this output wherein it says it is returning this specific file name. That means my database instance was started using the dynamic parameter file. And how do I say that? How can I say that it was started using the dynamic parameter file? Because the
SP,
naming convention of this file is starting from sp
SP
file.
file.
Okay. So now I'm sure that this is started using the dynamic parameter file. And the feature of dynamic parameter file, like I mentioned, is we can change parameter values on the fly. Okay, so if say I want to change this parameter value, how do I change it? Now my database instance is up and running. I'll fire this command. Do you see the value has changed now?
Yes,
Correct.
Dhruv. Hmm.
So this is how we can update a parameter value on the fly. However, this is possible only if your instance was started using the dynamic parameter file. Okay. Now, let's say that you want to change the name of the database. Let's try to change it. Okay, this is the parameter right? DB underscore name. I'll just to make sure to you guys, you see DB underscore name is the parameter name. Okay. We are trying to change the DB name to DB2 instead of DB1. We are trying to change it to DB2. Okay. You see the error message that it says specified initialization parameter cannot be modified. So why it is giving me this error? That is because although your database instance was started using the dynamic parameter file, but you cannot change every parameter value on the fly. Okay. Not every parameter value can be changed on the fly. Okay. Are you getting it?
If you want to change to IN82 to SPF,
Sorry, can you repeat that?
this DB1 database is using IN80 DB1, that parameter, default parameter. Means static
Yeah.
parameter it changes. If you want to change that one to SPF, means secondary parameter, the dynamic parameter, you can change that one.
Yeah. So actually only those parameter values can be changed which are dynamic in nature. Okay.
This the DB1 is in right now. This DB1 is in static parameter now.
Yeah. So DB1 parameter is a static parameter. Okay. You cannot change that on the fly. Okay.
If
Now,
you want to change it, first of all, you shut down that one. No?
yeah. Changing the database name is, I mean, it requires a lot of other steps as well. You can't straight away change the database name by just modifying that parameter. That was just an example to show you guys. Okay, I'll explain more about it. Hold on. Okay, so there are two things like I mentioned parameter files are of two types: static parameter file and dynamic parameter file. Similar to that, the parameters are also like two types. Like, okay, static parameters or dynamic parameters, or I'll show you in the database itself, DESC v dollar parameter. You see it over here is modifiable. Okay, is this modifiable? Do you see this column? Okay, so let's say select. Okay, so just remember this thing again, that for the parameter values to get modified on the fly, the parameters also has to be dynamic in nature. Just having started the instance using the dynamic parameter file is not enough. So the parameter, your instance has to be started using the dynamic parameter file, and your parameters also have to be dynamic in nature if you want to modify their values on the fly. Okay, so we saw that with this example. So although your instance is started using the dynamic parameter file, still we are not able to modify this parameter. We got this error, right? And how do we verify whether the parameter can be dynamically modified on the fly or not? we make use of this
Name is
data dictionary view v dollar parameter, and in that we check this specific column value is instance modifiable. If this is having a value as false, that means the parameter is not dynamic in nature. Okay, fine. So this is how we can modify a parameter in the database. Okay, now coming back to, we were on the parameter files, we were looking at different types of parameter files. So we are seeing two different types of parameter files, again, static and dynamic. Okay, so dynamic are the ones which starts from the name SP file. Now another difference is, like we did a cat and we could see the contents of this static parameter file, we cannot do the same for this dynamic parameter file. That is because this is a text file. Okay, this is a text file. However, this one is a binary file. Don't try to open this SP file. There is every chance. Don't try to open it like using the cat command. Okay, there is every chance that it will get corrupted. Okay, so don't try to play up with these SP files, whichever you see in the DBS location. Okay, whatever you see inside this DBS directory, if it is a text parameter file, you can open it, you can see the contents. Don't try to open the SP files. Okay, now if you remember, let's connect to the database again. Okay, let me shut it down. So here, if you see, I fired another command to shut down the database. It is shut immediate. The last time it was a plain shutdown that you saw, correct? If we come to this window, last time the command that I fired was, it was just
Shutdown.
shut down. Now this time I have fired shut immediate. Now both of these commands, these are different. Okay, the database instance, the phases that it goes through while shutting down, okay, will be different. Those phases will be different in case if you fire a normal shutdown command or if you fire a shutdown immediate command. The phases that your instance goes through while shutting down will be different in both those scenarios. Okay, now see, when I try to start the database again, I am not specifying whether it should start using the dynamic parameter file or it should start using the static parameter file. Did I specify any of those names like sp file db1.ora or init db1.ora? I did not. I just fired startup. Okay. So if now you check whether Oracle instance used the which of these two files, sp file db1.ora or init db1.ora, I can check that through this command.
parameter v dollar
No. We saw this command, right? Show parameter sp file, wherein it gives us the name of the file which was used to start up the instance. Okay. So by default, your Oracle instance will try to use, okay, it will try to use or it will give the first priority to the dynamic parameter file. Okay, so when I fired a startup command over here, Oracle instance will first try to read the dynamic parameter file whose name start from SP file. Okay, if it does not find this specific SP file, if it does not specify the dynamic parameter file, only after that it will try to start up the instance using the static parameter file. Getting it? So the first preference by default is given to the dynamic parameter file whose name starts from SP file. Only if it is not available, only then it will try to use the static parameter file. Getting it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, if I have to specifically give, or say if I want to specifically start the instance using a specific type of this parameter file, okay, whether static or dynamic, then how do we do it? Okay. So let me shut it again. Now, if you see that command output show parameter SP file, now it is not giving us any value which it was giving previously, correct?
Yes.
Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
So if you are not seeing any value over here, okay, that means now it has been started using the static parameter file, okay, for which we explicitly gave the name. We explicitly wanted Oracle instance to be started using the static parameter file. Okay, so that's how we specify it. Startup p file equals to, and then you give the whole path. In this case, we are already present inside the same directory. That's why I didn't have to give the whole path. Otherwise, we could have given the complete path. Okay, so the complete path and then the name of the parameter file. Like in this case, I gave init db1.ora. Clear with this?
Yes,
Yes.
Dhruv.
Okay. Now, see, understand another thing here. Last time we changed that parameter open underscore cursors, correct? Show parameter open underscore cursors. We had changed it from 300 to 500, right? If you recall.
Yes.
But here again, it is showing open cursors as 300. That
Change
is
that
because,
dynamic parameter. We change in dynamic parameter.
no. That is because, see, open underscore cursors, let's verify if open underscore cursors is static or dynamic. Okay, let's go back to this notepad, search for that. See, open underscore cursors, here it is showing as true. That means it is dynamic in nature. Okay, but your instance itself is started using the static parameter file, right?
Yes.
So if the instance itself is started using the static parameter file, that means no parameter can be modified on the fly. That is the primary difference between a static parameter file and dynamic parameter file, right? So if
Yes.
your instance is started using static parameter file, in that case, even though this parameter open cursor is actually a dynamic parameter, but it can't be modified on the fly. Why? Because the base, that is instance, that itself was started using a static parameter file. You understood that? Okay.
Yes.
And in that static parameter file, you still have the value as 300. However, if you again, now let me shut down again. Now I will start it using the dynamic parameter file. Then you see what is the value of this open underscore cursors parameter. Now I have straight away given it as startup. So which file should it pick up? Which parameter file should it pick up?
Dynamic parameter file.
As
Dynamic parameter
Dynamic.
file.
yeah, both of you. Thanks. So let's confirm the same. So here you see it has picked up that dynamic parameter file. And then if you again fire this parameter, show parameter, fire this command to check the value of this show open cursors, it is showing the value as 500 because now your database instance is started using the dynamic parameter file, and in that dynamic parameter file, you modified the value to 500, right? So this parameter in the dynamic parameter file, it is having the value as 500. So when you start the instance using dynamic parameter file, it shows you a value of 500. When you start the same instance using the static parameter file, it is showing you the value as 300. Clear with this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now in your production environment, you will not, this is for you guys to understand the functionality or the differences between P file and SP file. Okay. Your static parameter file, that is the one which starts with the naming convention init. Okay. ls-lrt star.ora. Okay. So your static parameter file for which the name starts with init, they are also called as P file. Okay, they are also called as P file. And your dynamic parameter file whose name starts with SP file, they are also called as SP file. You'll keep on hearing this term like P file and SP file, P file and SP file. So SP file is pretty much clear that, okay, their naming convention will be starting from SP file. But when someone says P file, that means they are talking about the static parameter file, which is starting from init keyword.
180.
Okay. Yeah. And they are having an extension of .ora. They will have an extension of .ora. Okay. So in your production environment, your databases, generally 95% of them, or more than 95, 99, almost 100% of them, they will be running using the SP file. Okay. All those database instances are going to be running, or it will be started using the SP file. There is no reason why anyone would want to run their database instances or start their instances using the static parameter file. Okay. However, what they do is, whenever, let's say, let me connect to the database again. If I do a show parameter, oh, show parameter will give me the list of all the parameters, okay? Because I did not give any specific parameter name. Show parameter open underscore CURS. Okay, now here if you see, it is having a value of 500. Now again, I will change it to alter system set open underscore cursors equals to, let's say, 600. Scope equals to both. Okay. Again, if you do show parameter, now you will see that its value has increased to 600. Okay. Then in production environment, what we do is whenever we modify a parameter value, okay, on the fly, if we modify any parameter value, immediately you will see your senior DBAs doing this: create P file from SP file. Okay. Now I have fired this command, create P file from SP file. What it does, let's see. Okay. Now I have started the database instance using the static parameter file, correct? By giving the name explicitly.
Yes, Dhruv.
Yeah. Now see the difference, what is going to happen. You see, even though your database instance was started using this static parameter file, still now it is having the open cursor value as 600. How come?
Using that create P file from SP file.
Exactly. So what happened was, when we fired this command create P file from SP file, internally what Oracle does, it overrides that static parameter file. Okay. It overrides that static parameter file using the contents of your SP file, that is your dynamic parameter file. Okay. So if you see over here, when we fired this command, if this is showing your last modified date of the file, okay? So when you fired this show parameter, this create P file from SP file, at that time, this specific file, that is your static parameter file, it got modified. If you see the previous modification of this table, okay, the modification date of that static parameter file, you will see some other date, right? See, it was previously showing the last modified date for this file was May 15th, correct? See, and now it is showing current time, correct? So that is because we fired this command create p file from sp file. Because of this create p file from sp file, what Oracle did, it overwrites the contents of this file using this specific file. Clear with this? So in your production environment, whenever you are going to modify a parameter value on the fly, immediately you replicate all those values in the static file as well. Clear with this?
Yes.
As
Yes.
okay, fine. So that is about the different types of parameter files in the database. That is one. One is static parameter file, another is dynamic parameter file. You know the difference now. You know how do we verify whether the database instance was started using P file or SP file. You also know how to check a parameter value. Either we can make use of this show parameter command within a database, or else you can also go and verify the parameter value by opening the text parameter file. Okay. So your init file, that is the static parameter file, it is a text file. However, your dynamic parameter file, that is SP file, it is a binary file. We should not try to open it. Okay. So that is the difference between those two files. By default, Oracle will try to start up the instance using the dynamic parameter file. Okay. It is given the precedence. If not, then it comes to the parameter file, or say the static parameter file. If as a DBA you want, you can explicitly specify which file you want Oracle to use to start up the database instance. Okay. We also saw just in commands how to shut down the database. Okay. We will go through all those phases that it goes through while shutting down. Okay. And also the startup phases. So that's all we have discussed today. Okay. We'll stop for the day and then we'll again continue tomorrow.
Yeah, Dhruv.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.